I'm taping on October 7th, so it seemed to be a good time to check in on. There's a lot of polling that's been out there on Israel, not just in the United States, but some polling in Israel. And it's the polling in Israel that I think a lot of people haven't seen or heard about. So I thought I would get there, um, discuss a little bit of the polling on how Israel has lost its standing in the United States. And it's really starting to erode across the board. It's certainly, Israel still has more support on the right than the left in this country, but it is eroding generally more. It's really Bibi's unpopularity is growing. He's never been a popular guy here, but his unpopularity is growing. But what's striking is how unpopular he is in the state of Israel, and I will get to that. But I do think it's, what have we learned about Israel over the last 2 years? What's been the sort of fallout from all of this? And I think what's interesting is on the U.S. relationship with Israel. I want to associate myself with some comments that Ian Bremmer made in his newsletter because I thought it was really smart. It's an interesting conundrum that Israel's in right now. Israel, under Bibi's leadership, has never looked as powerful or as alone. So many Western governments have embraced the idea of Palestinian statehood. And there's, in some ways, Israel has one friend, the United States. That's it. It makes the relationship with the United States that much more important to any current or future prime minister of Israel. And it gives the United States more leverage and arguably more global responsibility for managing, if you will, or influencing, or however you want to put it, or the belief that they have influence over Israel. But the Israeli government has never been more tied and more in need of U.S. support and more lenient. They have no other allies like the United States, nowhere even close. Not saying they don't have other friends out there, but it's only due to the United States that they have some Sunni Arab states that are friends. But it's sort of like they're friends because of the United States. Whether they'd be friends with Israel on their own is a whole other story. But I thought that was an interesting piece of analysis by Ian, who I like to frequently bring onto the podcast as my international expert, one of the just smarter global political scientists that are out there. But it's true, because as a military power, Israel now is the power of the Middle East. There's no close second. It's Israel and everybody else. So they have power. They're feared in the Middle East. And yet it's out of fear. There's less respect around the world because of Bibi's leadership too. Anyway, let me get into some of the polling because I think some of this is interesting and worth taking a look at. So look, there's still first let's talk about America's views of Israel in general. Big partisan split, 70%. This is a Pew poll, by the way, that I'm citing. Pew came out last week. And there's all this polling on this side. This is just the Americans. The poll of Israeli citizens is by the Israeli Democracy Institute. It was conducted, by the way, in Arabic and in Hebrew, because there's a lot of Israeli Arabs in the Israeli population as well. It is a large minority in the state of Israel. But let me start with the U.S. public opinion. So first, the sort of predictable, the partisan split. 70% of Democrats or Democratic-leaning independents view the Palestinian people favorably. Just 37% of Republicans or Republican leaners hold those same views. The Israeli government is viewed positively by 55% of Republicans. Only 18% of Democrats view the Israeli government positively. On the Israeli people, Democrats are evenly divided, 48-48, favorable, unfavorable on the Israeli people. Republicans, a much higher favorable view of the Israeli people, 67%. 82% of Republicans and 56% of Democrats view the Palestinian Authority unfavorably. So while there are fewer Democrats that view it unfavorably, majorities of both parties view the Palestinian Authority unfavorably. And 8 in 10 Republicans and 8 in 10 Democrats view Hamas unfavorably. But what's also interesting is there is growing skepticism of Israel's operation in Gaza over time. 39% now say Israel has gone too far. in its military operation against Hamas. That's up from 31% at this same time in 2024, and it was 27% in late 2023, just after Hamas took those hostages on October 7th. And overall, the Israeli government, which really is Bibi, right? But the Israeli government, 59% of Americans hold an unfavorable view of the Israeli government. That is up from 51% of last year. Look, you can't get to 59% of Americans on anything without having essentially pieces of all three of America's sort of political tribes, right? The left, center, and right. And that is definitely the case there. Now let me move to what we learned about the Israeli people, because I think some of these numbers will surprise people. And I think I say this as an American Jew, in some cases, I think folks that are not familiar, there's plenty of diversity of thought inside the American Jewish community, plenty of diversity of thought among American Jews on Bibi, the individual, on the Israeli government, on the Palestinian people. That nuance gets lost, frankly, in a lot of the conversation that takes place online, which is, as an American Jew, very frustrating to many of us. Many of us. And look, we disagree amongst ourselves. We have plenty of debates in the Jewish community ourselves, but we're pretty good at debating. We like debating. I will tell you that. But this, to me, I think won't surprise American Jews, but this will surprise people who are not familiar. 66% of Israelis say it's time to end the war in Gaza. 66% of Israelis, folks. Okay, that is up 13 points from a year ago at this time. And the same essentially 66%, 2/3 of the country think Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu should take responsibility for the security failures that led to the October 7th attacks and resign. Okay, now to split up that number, just so you know, it's about 40%, 45% who believe he should resign immediately now. There's a whole chunk of Israelis that think that Bibi, it was a security failure and he should take responsibility for this. He's never taken responsibility for the lack of smart security around October 7th. There's a reason results matter more than promises. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan has become America's largest injury law firm. For the last 35 years, they've recovered $25 billion for more than 500,000 clients. It includes cases where insurance companies offered next to nothing, short of shortchanging, seeing if they could get away with it. And Morgan & Morgan fought back, and they won millions. In Pennsylvania, one client was awarded $26 million. It was a staggering 40 times the amount that the insurance company originally offered. That offer, $650,000, whatever it took to sort of get away without paying. So with more than 1,000 lawyers across the country, Morgan & Morgan knows how to deliver for everyday people. So if you're injured, you're looking for a lawyer, check out forthepeople.com/ToddCast or dial #law, #529 on your cell phone. And remember, all law firms are not the same. So give Morgan & Morgan a look. Their fee is free unless they win. And then there's another 15% who believe he should resign after the war is over. Finish the military operation and then resign. But it's pretty clear. 2/3, basically 66% of the population thinks it is time for Bibi to leave the stage. He's got to go. And I think there is a belief, and this happens in any wartime situation. This is not unique to Israel. Zelensky is going to be facing the same thing. There's going to be fatigue, the population. There's going to be a belief, the population, that in some ways there's going to be too much scar tissue with that leader. And they're never, and frankly, they may be so warped that they see everything as something you got to go to war to. And so just in general, you'll see there'll be a similar situation in Ukraine where there'll be people who think it's time for Zelensky to go. Now, they may say, let's wait till after the war. Don't change horses in midstream type of mindset, which is something that many a democracy goes through. But I just think in general, I know this. I knew he was more unpopular than popular in Israel. I was surprised that the number would be that high. This is worth in a question, again, of the Israeli public. A majority of the public believes that Israel's standing in the international arena is worse today than it was before October 7th. 73% of the overall sample believes this. And this is across the board. Among Israeli Jews, it's 76%, and among Israeli Arabs, it is 60%. This is also the view of the majority of each of the three political camps within Israel. Those on the left, 95% of those in the Israeli left believe Israel's international standing is worse today, 87% in the political center, and even 69% in the political right. And what is the main goal of this war? Right? There's been, frankly, a debate inside Israel. What should the goal? Is the goal to get all the hostages home, or is the goal to eradicate Hamas? Well, we've heard what Bibi says, and certainly what his right-wing government says. They want to make it about Hamas. But that is not where a majority of the Israeli public is. 65% of the Israeli public believe the main goal of the war in Gaza today should only be bringing the hostages home. Hard stop. Hard stop. And the share, by the way, of people that hold those views has actually grown since January of 2024 among both Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs. And it's really not surprising. There's fatigue, there's concern that they're frankly never going to get home in time on that front. But it's, I just think here on this October 7th, we should reflect. Let's be hopeful that that we are potentially at the end here. And, for all the grief, everybody, this is a case where Donald, I don't know if another American president could be putting Bibi in his place on this a little bit. This is a case where Trump's using his sort of unique ability to bully for good, in a certain sense. This is not very good politics in general. It's not very good diplomacy in general, but sometimes, Bibi and Trump are very similar guys. They're clinging to power to avoid accountability, right? They share a lot in common. They have gotten power without having a majority support, which is easier to explain in a parliamentary system, a little harder to explain in our system. The two of them do have a lot in common, but it also means Trump knows how to bully Bibi because he knows who Bibi is. So at this point, let's just hope we can turn the page, stop the killing, start the rebuilding, and see if the page can truly get turned in the Middle East.